Sveicināti Delfi TV skatītāji, ētrā raidījums Kāpēc, un šoreiz mans viesis ir aviokompānijas Air Baltica vadītājs Martins Gauss. Ar viņu runāsim par to, vai arī turpmāk ar Latvijas nodokļu maksātāju naudu būs jāatbalsta aviokompānija un par Air Baltica biznesa stratēģiju. Tūlīt intervija, bet brīdināšu, ka to ierakstījām trešdienas pēcpusdienā, iemesls nepieciešamība sagatavot tulkojumu uz latviešu valodu. Latvijas Nacionālā līdzsabiedrība Air Baltica dibināta 95. gadā. Latvijas valstī uzņēmumā piederēja 51% akciju. 99. gadā par Air Baltica valdes priekšsēdētāju kļuva uzņēmuma padomes loceklis vācu uzņēmējs Bertolds Fliks. Uzņēmums strauji auga un sāka piedāvāt lidojumus pat uz Āfriku. Bet, kad 2008. gadā iestājās finanšu krīze, Air Baltica draudēja bankrots. 9. gada janvārī 47% Air Baltica akciju nonāca privāta akcionāra Baltijas aviācijas sistēmu īpašumā. Valdība sakotnēji atteicās glābt uzņēmumu, jo trūka skaidrības par tā darbības radītājiem un pārējiem akcionāriem. Tomēr vēlāk panāca vienošanos. Latvijas valsts un Baltijas aviācijas sistēmas līdzsabiedrība apņēmās ieguldīt 153 miljonus eiro. Fliks zaudēja amatu, un viņa vietā stājās pilots Martins Gauss, kurš ir Air Baltica vadītājs joprojām. Pēc Latvijas Krājbankas kraha Latvijas valsts par 319 miljoniem eiro iegādājās bankā ieķīlātas kapitāldaļas, kļūstot par teju 100% Air Baltica akciju īpašnieku. Kopš tā laika valstī uzņēmuma glābšanā nācies iesaistīties vēl vairākas reizes. 15. gada otrajā pusē notika plašas diskusijas par finanšu investoru piesaisti uzņēmumam, lai līdzsabiedrība varētu iegādāties jaunas lidmašīnas. Latvijas valdība ieguldīja uzņēmuma 80 miljonus eiro un piekrita 20% akciju pārdot vācu investoram Ralfam Dīteram Montagam Girmesam par 52 miljoniem eiro. Gadu vēlāk tas pārņēma Dānijas uzņēmējs Lars Tūsens. 20. gadā avionozare smagi skara pandēmijas izraisītā krīze. Lai to pārvarētu, no valsts budžeta Air Baltica pamatkapitālā iemaksāts 4,5 miljonus eiro. Tādējādi valsts līdzdalība līdzsabiedrībā palielinājās līdz 96%. Vēlāk valdība piešķira vēl 90 miljonus eiro Air Baltica pamatkapitāla palielināšanai, apņemoties tuvāko gadu laikā īstenot uzņēmuma akciju pārdošanu, lai šos ieguldījumus atgūtu. Kopumā valsts ieguldījis uzņēmumā vairāk nekā 500 miljārdu eiro. So, Martins Gauss, welcome to Kāpēc.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
The Ministry of Infrastructure has recently presented to the government Air Baltic's last year's information, and the government has said that this is what we will talk about, the financial situation and the business strategy of the company. And so last week we heard from the Prime Minister and from the Minister of Infrastructure that Air Baltica at the moment is living with its own resources and doesn't need money from the state. Can you maybe give more details?
That statement is correct because that is what we briefed. So we regularly have to come to the Cabinet of Ministers to present the results of Air Baltica, and in the occasion of last week, we presented formally the 9 months results of the company, which was last year's 9 months result. But what we always do, because that's a technical requirement, I give an update in form of a PowerPoint presentation. What is the status of the business at the time? I did that in a PowerPoint presentation showing what is the status today. And the status since last year, September, has significantly changed because our business has significantly changed to the positive, which we did not know in September. And therefore the statement that we are living on our own resources is correct because we are now going through the winter without additional cash needs. And in the summer, Air Baltica normally doesn't need cash needs because the bookings in the summer are always enough to go through the year. And therefore we are very confident also with the result we achieved last year, which is not public yet, that we are continuing without asking shareholders for financing.
But can you elaborate in any way on the numbers, revenue, profits? Of course, you don't have final numbers, but some sort.
So as we are at the stock exchange, we can give guidance, that's the term. And the guidance is that we will be exceeding our budgeted numbers for 2022, which we presented before even the war started. We produced, according to the business plan, a budget, what we would like to achieve. But then the war came and we had to completely change the business because of not being able to serve Ukraine and not being able to overfly Russia. That impact was not clear to us how we would end up the year, but what we know now is that we had on the revenue side higher revenue. Also the EBITDA figure, which is important when we look at the IPO later, was significant better without giving a concrete number. But the company has been close on the revenue side to the year 2019, and that is a surprise. Also from the result, there will still be a loss, but significantly smaller than it was the year before, and also smaller than what we said we would achieve. And all of this, despite that there is a war, is a very good achievement for any airline, and therefore we are pretty proud that we have achieved it, and that, I guess, came over then in the Cabinet of Ministers, that they understood that the company is actually doing what we communicate all the time. We just have the issue that only locally, because the rest of the world gets it, but locally our business is not really understood, and therefore there is a lot of information in the public domain which is not correct.
And now you have a chance to,
yes,
to fix that. So not all of our viewers, I'm sure, are familiar with your finances. So in 2019, you had the revenue of 500 million. So this is something that you will achieve this year, as I understand. And the losses in 2021 were 136 million. So any estimate of losses of last year?
Again, I could tell you the exact figures which we have as a company, but the auditors will have to audit them and confirm it. But on the revenue side, the number 500 million is a good number as a guidance. On the loss, it is definitely less than half of last year's loss, which is less than we expected to have, because we still had to go out of COVID. That was the year we came out of COVID, and so the loss will be less than half of what we had last year.
In September, you have in the official 9-month report the number of losses 35 millions. So I guess this means that
it will be higher than that.
It will be higher. You were still losing money in the end of last year.
Yes, because the last quarter of the year has November, December. Also January, February, this is where we lose money. And then in the summertime, we make money. But presenting these numbers, I think was a surprise, because officially only the 9 months numbers are yet audited, and the year-end result we will have in March. But we know it, and assuming that these numbers are the ones we're going to publish, they led to that statement that Air Baltic is out of COVID and lives on their own funds again. And this year we presented also the budget for this year, where we have significant growth, and we are targeting a profit again. And very important, the company, an airline, it has two profits. One is the operational profit, and then one is the net result, where you have all the interest and the taxes and all the obligations from the past. Air Baltic will achieve a very positive operational result, while I can't say is it a profit or loss yet, but it could be that Air Baltic turned operational profitable 1 year before we expected it. And that, I think, presenting the number is the biggest part of it, because what we do made operational sense last year.
Just one last question about the numbers, and here I can be wrong, but if we look again at the 9-month result, we can see that the cash that was in your account was 34 millions at that point. And if we look at the expenses that the company has, then approximately it is around 20 million per month to keep the operations of Air Baltic going. So if you kept losing money, then do you really have now this cash to pay for monthly expenses?
And that is the biggest issue, which is difficult to explain. Cash has nothing to do with the losses, because there's a lot of numbers which produce a loss or even a profit, which are not cash relevant. For example, the exchange rate of the dollar is making a huge impact to airBaltic's result if it's high or low, but it is not direct cash relevant. So our cash, if you quote the 34 million, which was there in the 9 months result, actually last week we had more cash on the account while we are in the winter schedule, which would not be the case. The reason for that is that we are having cash from sales which we have for the future, and we will be starting now to generate cash, positive cash, to go into the summer. But the losses airBaltic makes, or the profits, you can make profits and still not have cash, and that is how accounting works. So to simplify it, we say we have an income, we have cost, that is cash, but then there's a lot of items. For example, if you have to build provisions for the future, that there's something coming in the future, that is not cash. You just have to show this, and it would increase your loss or decrease your profit. So airBaltic has cash today to go forward and to go through this year, and does not need to go to the government to ask for cash, because we got cash in form of equity at the beginning of COVID, which at that time was seen of being okay to go through COVID.
The 250 million, just to
plus
90.
Plus
yes.
90. That money at that time when we asked for it did not foresee that there would be a war coming. So what the problem we had, and I think that led to a lot of misunderstanding, in February last year a war started which impacted us and Finnair very heavy. And we were not sure last year how to compensate with the money we got for COVID, also the war. But we managed in a very unique way, but we did it. So we didn't go bankrupt like a lot of other airlines. We managed, and we managed it without extra help.
And to that we will go, but first I want to ask about the next year, because yes, you are, as you say, the company is stable now. The question is, are you sure that you will not need any state aid ever again, given that there's not another apocalypse kind of event coming?
Exactly. We do not know what is coming. Last year we didn't know.
But if we assume that...
If we assume that the business goes as we currently forecast, we will not go and ask for state aid.
Ever.
No, but we will be going to the capital markets and asking to refinance the bond. We will be asking for IPO, because we need for future growth new money.
So next year you have to repay 200 million euros that you have issued in bonds previously. Yes. And so you just said that you plan to
reissue the bond.
Reissue the bond.
Which is normal, because when a bond matures, you go and say you reissue a bond, and we would then try to reissue a higher bond. We can do this earlier than next year, and we will try to do that, which means we turn to the capital market. In addition, we will try to put the company to the stock exchange, which again would bring money from the capital markets.
But about reissuing bonds next year, so our business journalists have looked into the market situation and at the bonds of airBaltic. I'm sure you're aware of that
Yes.
story. They saw that investors who have bought these bonds, they are selling them 30% cheaper
Yes.
than they have initially bought them. Here we can see the story. And the several financial specialists have explained that this means that investors see the probability of getting back their initial investment as low next year, and therefore now they're ready to take a loss rather than get nothing in 2024.
Yes. Very interesting, because it means if the ones who are selling it now for 70% of 100 take a 30% loss. The ones who are buying it, because if somebody sells it, somebody else is buying it. Otherwise it wouldn't be a trade. The ones who are buying it now, if we are paying it, which we say we will do, make 30% profit. And that is why there are buyers, because as many as there are who are selling it, as many take the opportunity to say, we believe in it on the international capital markets, and we will be buying it. In general, the airline industry has been in a very difficult stage, and then it is normal that bonds from critical companies, and airlines were in a critical stage, are yielding, as it says, less. than a company which is producing profits.
Well, but here we can see that if you compare Air Baltic to many other airlines whose bonds are also due next year, the situation is different. Investors are not trying to get rid of these bonds, willing to lose so much money as in case of Air Baltic.
There is, to my knowledge, no bond with the same interest rate, because each bond has a certain risk reflected in the interest. Our bond is with an interest of 6.75%, so that's on the high side. It's a higher risk bond, and therefore there's also a higher discount on that bond now. If you take a bond from a well-established company like Lufthansa, which has a complete different balance sheet or had before, then they issue the bond also not for 6.75%, so maybe for 2%. Obviously, then there's a different risk on such a bond from the very beginning. You can earn more with an Air Baltic bond, higher interest, but it's also higher risk. And what we say is we're going to repay the bond in 2024. At the moment, the idea is to refinance the bond with a new bond, and that means you have repaid the bond. If that happens, the bondholders will be very happy. We just now have to wait until this happens, and then everybody will have the story how much money people made on the Air Baltic bond because they bought it cheap.
But next year, how much do you plan to reissue the bonds, and at what percentage?
It will definitely be a higher percentage. This we know already because.
Can you give an estimate?
No, I cannot. Banks can give you. So we are asking international banks. They are mandated to do this for us.
10%?
It would be more than 10%, the reissuance of the bond, because of the capital markets have completely changed. They were closed last year, completely closed for anybody to issue bonds, especially when you are close to the border to Russia. Any company here could not issue a bond, not at all, in our risk category. Now it starts that you can, but you will have to pay a higher interest because the overall interest situation in Europe has changed. That's one reason. And the other reason is that high-risk bonds are seen as high-risk bonds, and we are not in the category yet of a AAA. We are not as good as the Latvian state, for example, who can have less interest rate.
But here you differ, returning back to my initial question. Of course, I didn't come up with this myself, but these are specialists, finance experts, the head of the leading asset management company in the Baltics, for instance. They see this bond, the bond situation that Air Baltic has now as a sign that markets don't trust Air Baltic, and they don't trust that Air Baltic can make good on its promise. So this is not just my conclusion.
No, that is...
Here you have a difference of opinion with the leading professionals of the field.
Yes, but that is, we have to say that we should also look at all other financial institutions, for example, all the leasing companies, which are putting a 12-year investment in Air Baltic in form of buying an aircraft from us and leasing it back to us for 12 years. That is significant more in the amounts of money we are talking about than the bondholders do. This part of the financial community is trusting Air Baltic very well because we achieve very good results here. So we have to be careful. The financial world has many experts. There's as many who give a positive or a negative statement. Credit ratings go up and down. We can only show the results, and then we can deliver. If we don't deliver, like many airlines did, and that's where the risk comes from, then they went bankrupt around us. But we are still here, and we are actually showing now, with the results we achieve, that we are on the way to repay our bonds.
So at the moment, you are sure that next year you will be able to get back the 200 million by reissuing bonds? This is your statement now. You're convinced of this?
If business continues as it is now, and the forecasts we have now, then yes. Because I do not know what that war does. I do not know what the world economy does. But if we assume all the forecasts our industry has, if we look at our own numbers, then yes.
So 2024, you have to reissue the bonds. 2025, you have to start paying back the initial aid from the state of Latvia, the 250 million.
May I correct?
Yes.
The window to repay it is 5 to 7 years, so we don't have to start. We would have to repay it by 2027. The plan is to do this earlier with the IPO. Again, on the bond...
It's a huge, if you put this together, this is 450 million that in a very short time, basically, you'll have to have.
But it's very different. So the bond we can reissue already now. So we from now have the chance to reissue a bond because we have in our bond the opportunity to call the bond, which means we could ask so we could repay early, which means if we issue the bond already now, which is not possible yet because of the capital markets, we could do this already now, but we have to do it by next year. We should do it by next year. On the 340 million, yes. That is completely different. The state has put in equity into the company as a shareholder, and because of that, they have today 97% of the shares. They got these shares because they put in the 340 million. The EU said, first of all, they could only put it in as they could show to the EU that this airline will make it. Otherwise, they could have not put in the money. The money was put in, and now the state has to demonstrate that these 340 million plus interest, 5% per year, can be returned. But it can be returned when we go to the stock exchange and the state keeps their shares. There will be new money coming in. If these shares have the value of 340 million at the time, then the state has demonstrated that they got the money back. So that would be sufficient. But the state could also say, we are selling our shares now because they got shares for it, and they take back the money. That will happen when we do the IPO. But that has nothing to do that we have to earn cash. This means shares of the company are sold because the state got for the money they put in shares.
But to sell those shares, as I understand, it is also next year that you plan to go public.
Plan end of next year, yes. That's the earliest day we see today, November 2024, for the roadshow and for the first time when we think we can do an IPO.
So to attract investors, the question is, what are you going to, how are you going to sell it? If I imagine, let's say, a Norwegian pension fund or even some of the friends I know who invest in shares, they want to know the business strategy, the long-term business strategy. So what are you going to tell these investors? What kind of company airBaltic is going to become?
We basically we continue the current plan we have, which we execute already. So next year in March we receive our 50th aircraft. We have a business model which is unique, where we have a full-service business class, or a premium product in the front of the cabin, and an ultra-low-cost economy cabin. We fly a unified fleet, the most modern one in the world now, very efficient. So on the sustainability front, which is important to investors for the future, this airline is standing out from other airlines. These are the basic elements. But then investors are going for future profits, which means we need to show in the numbers which we had in the past, going through COVID, what are we showing to go forward into the future? What are we showing in 2023? And then they will analyze our business plan going forward. Is this achievable with the aircraft we have, with the markets we have? And what we are telling them is that we will be ordering more airplanes in the future to continue to grow, because we already have 50 airplanes next spring. And we tell them that we have a business model which is now accepted not only here, where we fly in the Baltics, but also with other airlines who require our aircraft to fly for them, which is a separate profitable business. So we have a business plan already going to 2026, and we will be having by next year one which goes to 2030, which continues that success story. If we would not have had COVID and the war, airBaltic would already be at the stock exchange now. So all we had to do, we had to go through COVID. But the story of airBaltic is still intact.
But the one thing that I'm not hearing here, and let's say I want to buy airBaltic shares at some point, what kind of airline airBaltic is going to become? Because Ukraine, well, we all, of course, hope that Ukraine wins this war and that airspace is available to us, but Russia is going to be closed most likely for a long time. Belarus is going to be closed for a long time. So those flights are not happening. Asian flights are more expensive because you can't have the direct route. So what is the geography of airBaltic? What is your identity? What kind of company are you now?
We are today a company which is very successful connecting the Baltics, so the 3 Baltic states, to the rest of Europe and a little bit beyond. We have a mix of leisure and scheduled flying. We have a low-cost airline model, but we have a premium product in the front. We have, for example, 24 codeshare partners. All the major carriers are code-sharing with us, which is a significant part of the income. But how do we expand? The model of Air Baltic, we are a Latvian carrier, a population of 1.8 million people, having an airline which is, if you compare it to Lufthansa, 4 times the size. So what Latvia has with that airline is a connectivity and having such a strong connectivity, which is an economic factor. If we now go to other countries in Europe, they are asking the Latvian government, how are they doing this with Air Baltic? So you could say now, okay, what if another smaller country which doesn't have such airline would like to have something like Air Baltic? We can do this already today. And we are indirect doing it. We showed it in Tampere with 1 aircraft in Finland by just putting an aircraft there and ensuring a basic connectivity. We show it in Estonia and in Lithuania to a certain extent. There's many countries in Europe which are lacking connectivity. So Air Baltic's future model can well be that we take our expertise and put aircraft somewhere and earn money in these countries by opening that connectivity. And that is actually what people say to us.
It can be, or is it the current business model?
No, the current business model is focusing on the Baltics plus flying for others. But both of it can be extended. And as I said, when we are now looking, we receive already our 50th aircraft, and that is already planned in. So at the moment we have an issue, what are we doing after the 50th aircraft? Working on it at the moment to prepare when we have new money to order more aircraft, because at the end of the day we have to make profits and it has to be a sustainable business going forward, otherwise no IPO.
Returning to the question of IPO, how many shares do you plan to?
There's no numbers on this at the moment. There's also no valuation yet. We will be hiring the investment banks, the advisors, the legal firms. We will do a public tender in September at the moment. It's planned for this year. Once we have done that process, we will be then having the investment banks, the advisors, and then the process of evaluating what will be the value of the company, how many shares. These details happen then in the preparation.
Can you name the banks?
No, we don't know. Because we work now on the bond with JP Morgan and Morgan Stanley, but we will be not excluding any of the large banks in the world who do these things.
So you have already mentioned, and I wanted to bring this up myself, that leasing planes together with the crew to other companies is now the new business model of Air Baltic. The interesting thing is that before, the society kind of accidentally found out about this. Until there was an investigative report by my colleagues from Neka Personīga, basically Air Baltic never admitted that, okay, this is now our new business model.
It's not, again, local media doing something. We had presented a business plan to the EU Commission and the government.
But the public should know this because basically you're publicly owned.
No, actually no, because what we do as a business, we have a supervisory board, we have shareholders, they are aware, and the EU Commission needed to be aware, but we never made a secret out of it because we did the same thing already years before with our Boeings, 757s in Cambodia, in Vietnam. We did it in Beirut with the 737s. We did it all these years. What we did now, as Ukraine and Russia was not possible anymore, we had to take a bigger number of aircraft, but our business plan said at all times that up to 15 aircraft from the 50 aircraft could be used in ACMI out, and that is actually what we do. We did 14. We will do this year 14 aircraft, and we did 11 aircraft last year. Nothing new, nothing spectacular. SmartLynx does that business.
Sorry to interrupt you, but when journalists asked you about this, when Latvian public started noticing that new, shiny, beautiful Air Baltic planes are leased to other companies, and your flights, when people buy tickets to your flights, they fly with the older, shabbier planes. Sorry, I have to finish this. And when you were asked about this numerous times, you never mentioned that, yes, now this significant chunk of our fleet, this is our business model. We are not servicing you with these planes. They are going elsewhere.
Yeah. So I have to defend Air Baltic here, not myself, because I'm never asked these things as direct as here. This is the first interview which I give in this context since I'm in the country. So to explain it, There's no secret about it because the contracts which we close are public with Lufthansa Group, with SAS. So that's public. They announce, these airlines announce that once the contract is signed, and therefore it's public.
Sorry, I have to interrupt again, but you don't announce it.
We don't
announce that you lease the planes.
No, we don't announce if Lufthansa leases a plane from us. We are not announcing. We are confirming when they announce it. That's how it works. But we are announcing it. We are announcing if we are taking in somebody else, if we take in another airline, which we will do this summer as well, then we are saying we are taking somebody else to do a certain part of our business. Last year, we had a special situation. We didn't plan to take in other airlines. We didn't plan that because we had sufficient airplanes going to fly for us, and the others, which we couldn't use for the war and other reasons, we gave to others to earn money. And then we learned the supply chain issue with the engines would not deliver to us sufficient engines to fly our planes. So our planes, which were supposed to fly with the Latvian passengers, were standing on the ground. And then we had two options: take in ad hoc, the ones which have been heavily debated, or cancel the flights like many European carriers did. We decided we will fly, and we flew 245,000 passengers with other carriers from A to B rather than cancelling the flights. That's what we did.
What is the situation for this year as you see it? How many planes will be leased to other airplanes? 14.
And we will be leasing in at the moment, up to 4 aircraft.
And how many are grounded because they don't have they're not functioning basically?
Today we have 14 grounded. In the peak summer we will be going to no grounded aircraft, and then we will be probably going back to 4. So we have a forecast from the engine manufacturer how many engines are delivered, and this is a weekly changing forecast.
And in the summer they will be all here?
We will have, in the peak summer, we will have a moment where we will have all aircraft available, and then, but it's just for 1 month, and then it goes back. That's why we will take 4 aircraft. That's today's statement. We will take 4 aircraft to fly for us to cover this peak period, so the summer from April to October, while at the same time we're doing what we did last year. We are giving 14 of our aircraft in a long-term contract to others.
What are these other companies? As I understand, at the moment there's a current agreement with Swiss International, and with there was another one.
We have again. I cannot, as we know it already, but as long as it is not signed and these airlines are not saying we are flying for them, we are not allowed to say. What we say, we have already 14 aircraft where we know where they will go, but we are not the airline which announces it. But Swiss is a very good name because we will continue with Swiss also in the summer, because they already announced that.
And what are the companies that we are leasing planes and crews from?
That is not finalized. We try to take it from one company this year.
The Carpatair, or a different one?
We cannot yet say that because we have not concluded the contract.
Can you name country or region?
I cannot, because it's really still open. The moment we do it, we will announce it, because that is the moment. And we will do this differently this year, because this year we are planning it. Last year we couldn't plan it. And we learned a lot from what was last year, the public debate about it, and we do not do the same mistakes. So that I can already say. The total number of aircraft we take in this year is also less if things stay as they are forecasted.
I want to ask one question about this grounded planes.
Yeah.
We see that the same planes are also flying, for instance, for Swiss International.
Yes.
They don't have the same problems. They don't have grounded planes.
No, they have the same. The overall, the supply chain issue is a globe. No, we are the largest fleet in the world of the Airbus A220-300. So nobody has as many as Air Baltic has. So proportionally, we have also more aircraft. We have also the oldest. We fly them for 6 years. But if we look at other aircraft types, for example, Airbus A320, there is even more aircraft grounded worldwide. If you look at Indigo Group, at Lufthansa, the supply chain issue in our industry caused by COVID and caused by the situation in the world and the war is not something which just disappears. And it is not that there's something wrong with the airplane or the engine. It is just a situation which developed outside of the control even of the engine manufacturer.
I'm sure that this is a complicated situation overall, but can you explain what is not being produced where, and that leads to Latvia not getting the engines and spare parts.
Not only Latvia.
And others.
So the main cause is the Pratt & Whitney engine, which the engine has a certain time, how long it can stay on the wing, and then it is changed against another engine. That is something normal, so we are changing the engine against another engine. To do that, you need to have that engine in Riga. If the engine is not in Riga, because it has not been delivered, you cannot do it. Why is the engine changed? Or why is the engine not in Riga? Because the engine would go from here into a maintenance facility either in the US, in Poland, in Germany, and come back. But if they cannot produce the engine again with the new parts inside the engine, and there's thousands of parts, then the engine is not coming back. And the issue is it is multiple parts which are not produced in the world due to supply chain issues inside the engine, but also labor restrictions on the Pratt & Whitney side. So both, and it's publicly said by Pratt & Whitney that it is their problem, that they can't get the parts they need to rebuild the engine, and they do not have sufficient labor. There is a plan from Pratt & Whitney and Airbus to mitigate it, and this is why this summer it will be different, because we will get a different attention and more engines are being delivered already as we speak, to not, as we grow with the fleet, to not get into the same problem. But it is not over. The supply chain problem will stay into the year 2024.
This business plan where you're leasing your planes, and together with the cabin crew and the pilots and all the staff that is needed for the flight. So this is a permanent thing that is now to stay, as I understand from you.
As long as it is for us economically a better case than flying. So if the airplane would make more money flying for us on a route to Rimini, for example, we would not do that.
But can you explain what is the basis of this income? Why are we earning while leasing this plane with crew to other companies?
Because we are paid per hour. Like we pay others, they pay us per hour, a rate which we can calculate where we don't have any variable cost. So we know exactly what we get per hour, and the variable cost and the risk of selling tickets on that plane is not with us, that is with the carrier which takes the aircraft. Same if we take an aircraft in from somebody else. So we get per hour a rate, and we can very clearly calculate, because it's fixed cost we have, what is the profit margin on this. While if our plane flies on a route to Rimini, and we say this is what we want to do, we need to be successful making a profit with all the cost on the way to Rimini, as an example now, or to any other destination. So the calculation which we do is very simple. If we give the plane to somebody else, and we can make a higher profit doing this than flying to a destination where we cannot make the money, then we would do this.
So what is your profit margin on these flights?
We will not disclose the profit margin on these flights, but it's a significant profit margin, leading to this better result last year.
Is it possible that one of the reasons, besides the ones you have explained, that these deals are profitable, is the difference in wages?
Yes, it's one of the reasons for sure is that airBaltic can offer. First of all, we got our planes, we ordered them 10 years ago, and we got a very good price for our aircraft. airBaltic has a very good price.
I'm talking about the wages of the crew,
yeah,
the
if we look at
the
cost, then of course the plane itself is the most expensive part. But a small part is for sure also that we operate the aircraft, and that's overall crew cost. Pilots have international salaries, cabin crew are a bit lower than in Switzerland. So overall, our cost base and our operational efficiency, we can offer that aircraft for a better rate than competitors.
This is where the Swiss Union of cabin crew will not agree with you. They have already complained to the Swiss authorities, and what they mention publicly is that, you said the difference is not significant, but what they say is that, and I quote here the article that we're showing now on the screen, that airBaltic flight attendants would earn between 900 and 1,500 euros per month. Yeah. And in Swiss, the minimum cabin crew wage is almost 3,500 euros. So
correct.
It is a significant difference.
No, correct. Latvian salaries are not the same than in Switzerland. There's no doubt about it.
And you're in trouble for
we are
about this
we are not in trouble.
Switzerland
No,
now.
we are not in trouble at all, because we are not giving our cabin crew to Switzerland. We are not having Swiss cabin crew. Air Baltic is doing something which is a standard in Europe. We're not only doing it in Switzerland, we're doing it in Munich, we're doing it in Stockholm. So what Air Baltic does is a standard business, the same business Finnair does at the moment. Finnair is giving their planes to Lufthansa. Smartlinks is giving their planes all over the world. It's a standard business, a standard business in the world.
But for Finnair, it is not such a big part of their business plan.
Do you know that? Because
well, according to their reports, they don't present this as their business plan.
That's Swiss. That's up to Finnair. We clearly say, as long as this is a profitable business for us, better than doing it, flying empty to some place where we can't sell tickets because there is not a market, then this is better. But our long-term target is to grow this airline and fly scheduled flights. But don't forget, we just lost 72 million revenue not flying to Russia and Ukraine. So in 1 year. We had to do something to offset that, and I think people should be very happy that we even showed a better result. We will now, in the future, not plan anymore on any income from Russia and Ukraine, coming back to your earlier question. Our business model had to change, and it changed. What you expect from a prudent management is that they act towards a crisis, and that's what actually Air Baltic did. That we are now making more money than before should actually be taken positive rather than negative. And how we make the money is how you make money in the world by leasing aircraft out to others when you cannot fly them yourself. Better than putting them on the ground.
Well, I still have to say that I'm sure Finnair does not lease out a third of its fleet like Air Baltic does now.
Definitely not.
So you can't really compare your business strategy to theirs.
No, they shouldn't lease out any aircraft. They are leasing them only out because they can't overfly Russia anymore. We are leasing our aircraft out to others because we cannot serve Ukraine and Russia. So the proportion of business which was impacted by us being a gateway between East and West, we have been hit differently. But what I say is that other airlines, Smartlink's whole business model is based on doing this. Finnair is doing it temporary, and others are doing it.
The reason why I'm asking this is that Smartlinks is not financed by the state of Latvia.
Yes.
We
are, by the way, also not. That is also an important one. If I anyway am allowed to talk, we got in 27 years of our existence 543 million euro, the black hole, from the Latvian state.
And here, I'm really sorry, I do have to interrupt you here because you're doing, I have to call this out, you're a little bit manipulating the numbers. The 500 euros were not in 27 years, it is in the last 10 years.
No. In the last 27 years, since 1995, the Latvian state has invested in Air Baltic money.
And they started investing in 2010 while saving it. You just take this long period of time.
Okay, then so we reduce
the sum
27 years.
Smaller.
In the beginning, the airline made in 1 year the same revenue we are making now in 1 week. So the airline grew. And when the airline grew, and I was called in when the airline was in its deepest crisis because it was bankrupt. The state injected money, and the last time for the COVID crisis, a total of 543 million in 27 years. Also in 27 years, the airline paid 325 million in taxes to the state.
Yes, I know. You often mention this in interviews, but I want to finish.
Can I finish that? How do we pay our bills? We generated 6.5 million in revenues, and the revenues is the cash Air Baltic gets, and our bills, the salaries, my salary, is paid with the money Air Baltic earns from the passenger tickets and not with the taxpayers' injections in 27 years. That's very important to understand because we struggle in the Latvian media by being accused of using taxpayers' money to finance Air Baltic. We made 6.5 billion in revenue in 27 years. We got 500 million. And if I have the chance to say it, you can cut it out later, but these are the facts. And we are the only airline of this size in the Baltic states. We are here for 27 years and we've gone through several crises. And now we are going back into profit, and all of that money which was ever put in is returned. It is a good business for the state.
Okay, but if we look at how you were trying to cut costs and make profits and get the revenue, One thing that really interests me is the Air Baltic employees and pilots and their salaries, because in the last 2 years, all of the Air Baltic pilots were not working for Air Baltic. They were working for a company called
ACR.
Aviation Crew Resources. And their full taxes were not being paid for them. They received half of their salary as an official salary, and half as dividends.
Yes.
So basically what you were doing, you were optimizing taxes
We did
for a really long time.
No, we did. So when I joined the company, there was a company in Malta which used to employ the pilots, and that was done at that time for competitive reasons, because we are competing with other airlines like Ryanair, SmartLynx. So airlines use different systems. That system which was used when I came was not according to the Latvian standards, so we turned to the Latvian finance authorities at the time and developed with ACR a system which keeps us competitive, and that was the way how we did ACR. Now that system doesn't work anymore because the legislation are changing, so today all pilots of Air Baltic are employed again by Air Baltic. But if we look at our industry in Europe, we have very different models how airlines are competing with each other on the resource pilot and pilot salaries. So that, again, this is all transparent, no secrets, it's in our annual reports, and all of our pilots have been employed by ACR, a Latvian-based company, which we pay our taxes in Latvia, but yes, they were under a different scheme to compete internationally. Today, all pilots are again in Air Baltic, having the normal social taxes, because that is today the best system. And I'm not the one to decide on the tax legislation of the different countries in Europe. We are always following the latest laws, and that is the good one about Air Baltic. We are in Latvia. We are not somewhere paying our salaries in Bangkok or in Cyprus. We are the airline paying the taxes in Latvia.
I am not saying that this is illegal. What I'm saying is that, and the system is not only the last 2 years, basically majority of pilots were not paying, the company Air Baltic was not paying full taxes for majority of pilots in the last
actually, Air
10
Baltic
years.
was not paying a lot of taxes in the last years because we made losses. Air Baltic took money from the state to survive.
Yes, we know that. And given that, at the same time, you were realizing, well, I think that anyone who is not maybe into legalistic language would call it a scheme, to not to pay taxes for not to pay properly taxes for your employees. This is what was happening in reality.
No, it's not correct, because what we do in Latvia is always cross-checked with the Latvian authorities. You cannot do something in Latvia being owned by the state, being controlled by the Latvian state, and then just not following the law. Sorry, I object to say that we didn't follow the Latvian law.
I'm not saying this.
Okay,
I'm saying
so
that
then we are doing a very good job, because we are doing something to stay competitive, as all others do as well, because we have to compete with international airlines like Wizz Air, Ryanair, Norwegian. Some of them went bankrupt in between, optimizing it. Air Baltic continues to be a Latvian-based company with its only seat in Latvia. We don't have any other tax residents, and we are doing it all here. But we are doing it to compete in a global market, and we will continue doing this. So if there's an opportunity to optimize our cost, and it's legal according to the Latvian system, of course we would use, like any other company, this opportunity.
Question is it ethical?
Yes, it is definitely ethical, because I want to hear the Latvian state, if I'm not running the business according to international standards and competing with others. I think I'm employed to maximize the profit for the Latvian shareholder, Latvian state, and the private shareholder. That is why I'm employed. And I have to say I'm very proud. I have more than 30 years in this industry. I'm a captain on an aircraft. I've flown myself more than 500,000 passengers safely from A to B as a captain. I do know this industry. I'm for 11 years here. I'm fighting with the Latvian public only. I have a very high recognition internationally. And I'm doing this because I really believe that this company is special. And I continue doing it for the next years to take it to the stock exchange. it's tough to be here in this country, being accused all the time of not doing a good job, while the world says you're doing a good job.
Can you name any other company, any other large, reputable airline that employs the same scheme of tax optimization?
I will not name any of the companies, but you just take now the two largest low-cost companies competing with us in Riga, and then you have two names. But I will not do this because I think you can do that research very easy to see how are other airlines doing this. So the resource pilot or a general air crew, just go for all the airlines flying to Riga airport, maybe apart from Lufthansa, and just check in detail how that is done, and then you will see that we are doing something which is internationally absolutely normal.
Okay, we will leave this with the viewers to evaluate and make their own conclusion, but you have mentioned your own salary already, and well, this is a question that often arises in your interviews. If we look at your salary of the last years, I can just give the viewers a chance to look at that. But first I want to ask, so as I understand, your contract was renewed.
Yes, last year. To reflect the time until IPO or after IPO until end of 2026.
Just a short question. Do you know what are your plans after that? Do you want to stay longer than 2026 in Air Baltic?
I definitely want to continue running a successful company beyond, but that is the decision of the shareholders, not mine.
And in this prolongation of your agreement, was there included a salary increase?
No, because it's not possible, as the EU says, when an airline has COVID aid, it cannot change the contract of the board members, and therefore there is no salary increase in my contract. It also cannot be repaid later. That's it. So I live with until the state has returned the COVID aid with a reduced salary of around a maximum of 500,000 per year. So already now that is reduced by approximately 500,000 per year because the bonus part cannot be paid even if you achieve it. And actually I achieved also the bonus parts, but it will not be paid.
I do have to make a little pause here because we are shown in two platforms, and in one of those we have a shorter time on air. Šajā brīdī man jāatvedās no RTV skatītājiem. Mūsu diskusija turpināsies Delfi TV ēterā, bet RTV skatītājiem paldies par uzmanību un tiekamies pēc nedēļas. So we continue with you, but if we look at the numbers, you say so this cap on salaries of CEOs of board members of also in Finnair there is a similar situation.
All airlines which have
we can maybe see again this your salaries for the last years since 2014. You say there is a cap, and the gap should have been there in 2020, but we do see an increase in your income.
And you will even see a higher increase in the next declaration.
Can you explain it?
Yes, because the declaration takes the receipts of the year, not the salary of the year. And that's each year misleading, but that is the way how I'm the only person who issues such declaration in Latvia.
What are receipts? Can you...
No, whatever you receive in one year
Yes.
as an income, what you receive, that it doesn't have to be for this year. It could be from the past. But if it is received by you in this year, then it has to be shown in the declaration. So the declaration is done that you see all the money you received in a calendar year. But for example, bonus payments are paid at a later stage because they will be only paid out after the year is over. And that's why it changes.
So if we see this increase from 2020 to 2021, where in 2020 your salary yearly was 688,000, not salary, but the income, and 829,000 in 2021. So can you explain what did you receive in that in 2021?
So in 2021, the declaration I gave in 2022, that is the accumulated income of the year 2021. That includes everything. That could be, for example, that I did not take any salary in 2020. So I just did not take a salary.
But we see that you did.
No, I did not in 2020. You see it's 686. It's less. So I did not take for 2 months any salary because in the crisis I had to unemploy 1,000 people, and I'm the only person in the whole of Latvia who said I'm not taking a salary, and that is reflected. But I did take a salary again after 2 months when we started flying again. That's a fact.
So the 2021 money is what you didn't receive in 2020 when you said you are not getting salary. I'm just trying to...
No, that's the normal one. So in 2020, COVID came, and I did immediately say I'm not taking a salary for 2 months. So I just cut my salary to 0 for 2 months.
Yes.
But after the COVID, after we could fly again, I received my salary again. It was a deliberate...
The same, okay.
And that's why. But now there will be, for example, in the 2022 salary, a payment from the 2019 bonus, because this was postponed as a payment so that the company could go through the crisis. The question is, I understand that my salary is the highest public salary in Latvia, and I do understand for 11 years it's the most interesting stuff to discuss, and I'm very transparent. I'm the only one in Latvia who has to go through this. The question is, what is the added value of this envy debate in all the media each year? What is the value of it? Because I receive a salary which today is significant below what I would receive if somebody would ask external experts what's the salary. Is my salary making the company bad, or is it making the country bad, or is it just that this is an interesting subject and it's seen unfair?
Well, the reason why I'm asking this is because we can see that Air Baltic is much less transparent about this. If we look into Finnair annual report, we see that all the bonuses, all the percentages, all the incentives plans are described very specifically. Yes. They issue a yearly report on remuneration that says who received what, why, yes, etc. Air Baltic doesn't do that.
We do exactly the same in form of a public declaration each year, even to more detail, because I'm very sure that my colleagues in other airlines are not having to take down, if they renovate the bathroom or the kitchen, that they have to hand in that bill, which I do, to show what they paid the money for. That is also something I have to do, and then it's declared every year. But I'm following 100% the Latvian legislation, and I'm declaring my salary. There's 0 cents which are not in that declaration. That our annual report is to the standards we have to deliver the annual reports, that is fine. Once Air Baltic is at the stock exchange, there are different requirements, and we will definitely follow also these requirements.
But so you are admitting that Finnair has a more detailed explanation publicly?
I do not know, because I'm not diving into salary details of others.
Well, we can see here that we have, here is short-term incentive plan, what is the performance period, what is the target percentage.
I do not have all these things.
The long-term incentive plan, what is the target percentage. If we look at the... Yeah. And there is a separate document that Finnair publishes. That is, we can maybe see that in the next.
No, I'm very
slide.
Happy to have a look at it. Is the question, where do we get with it if we take a completely different
contract? The question,
contract?
why we don't see this about you?
I don't know why we don't see it, because the shareholders, my shareholders, discuss these things. We are publishing what we as a company have to publish. I'm not making a secret out of my salary for 11 years. I'm the most transparent person in Latvia. No, I'm the most transparent. So what more do you want? Do people want to live with me in my flat? I live here. Everything I do is super public I'm the most public person in the country. I'm not saying it's wrong. I don't know what more I should do that people see. What more?
The CEO of Finnair does.
Okay, I'm very happy to do what the CEO of Finnair does, because I'm sure that he doesn't do a declaration like I do, but I'm very happy. If somebody has specific questions, please ask them, you get the answer, because I don't have my declaration now, but I can list you everything. What if I bought a car, where I have a house, it's all listed.
What I'm asking is the principles of how your salary is made. Why in, let's say, 2017, your bonus was 581,000, and in 2018, 723,000.
Because it's different years with different achieved targets.
And what were the targets?
The targets is a list of KPIs, which also is with the government. All the KPIs the board members of Air Baltic have are listed. And if they are achieved to a certain percentage, this triggers the bonus payments. And it's each year different, because each year there's different KPIs. each year there's different achievements.
You say the government. I'm talking about transparency, and you speak about accountability to the government.
No.
So what I want to see.
We as a company provide the documentation, and the supervisory board and the shareholders are controlling us, because I'm not controlling myself. There's a supervisory board, and then there is a shareholder. And this is absolutely transparent. I've just been to the Cabinet of Ministers. There's so many institutions.
I'm speaking about the public.
But there is a limit of what the shareholders want to show or not want to show to the public.
So do you understand correctly that in terms of your salary, it is the state that doesn't allow you to have the same level of details as Finnair gives?
No, not the state is not allowing anything.
We
have a standard in Latvia how you are dealing with state-owned companies' salaries and declaration. The Latvian system is the Latvian system. We are following 100% the Latvian system.
But
I cannot change the Latvian system.
No, but they will not punish you if you issue the same yearly report on remuneration like Finnair does, where you explain what kind of investment incentive plans you have.
I'm sure we will be doing it to international standards the moment this makes sense for us. But
why doesn't it make sense for you now?
Because we are already doing everything we can do to give that transparency. But again, send us a letter of what detail, because I'm not following every airline's salary reports, because we are doing it to an extent in Latvia which is unique, the detail of what we do. And we are doing it for 11 years. So if somebody wants to take this exercise, do it, and then you can follow it. And I know all the headlines each year about my salary, and I respect that because I work here and I earn a salary for what I do. But the time we are spending on this, on this discussion every year could be used for so much more education about the airline industry, because there is no airlines in Latvia apart from us.
Well, I'm sure you respect the journalists'
I do.
freedom to ask whatever questions they think is important for the public. But the reason why I wanted to talk about your salary is because what we looked at is the transparency of Air Baltic, given the money that the taxpayers have invested. And there's one area where I think there needs to be more transparency, and maybe you can clarify this for us. You have already mentioned the so-called sale and leaseback system. Maybe you can give us like a 1-minute short explanation how it functions, and then we can go from there.
Okay. So when we order an aircraft, we sign a contract that we will take an aircraft at a certain time in 5 years from now, and then we as an airline, we pay so-called pre-delivery payments. So certain percentages we have to pay for that aircraft until the day it is completely finished. When it is finished, we have to pay the rest for the purchase price. This we cannot do because we would need much more equity. So airlines in general today are then selling that aircraft. So our aircraft is sold in a tender to a leasing company. So the new owner, and that happens always on the day when we accept the aircraft in the factory. What happens now is the money which we paid before the delivery, we get returned. That is cash coming to us. We get our money back. And the purchase price of that aircraft, what we have sold to the leasing company, is given to Airbus in our case. And now we take the aircraft, and in Air Baltic's case, we are paying every month a lease rate for 12 years. Then the aircraft goes back to the leasing company because it's their aircraft, and this is it. And this is sale and leaseback, and that is an international standard done all over the world. Air Baltic does this. The first 8 aircraft are financed, so with them after the 12 years they stay with us. With all other aircraft so far we have done sale and leaseback, and the last 6 aircraft are not yet done. That tender is still going, and then we have done all 50 aircraft.
This is you're right in saying that it is common practice in this business. What differs Air Baltic here from other airlines is that it is not public information who the aircrafts were sold to? And
it is public.
Okay, so can you maybe say who are the partners?
There's for example international leasing companies. Goal is a leasing company which is owned by the largest investment fund, KKR. There's a company called ACG in the US, one of the largest leasing companies. So we're basically doing it with major leasing companies all over the world. Most of them have reside in Dublin, Ireland, where leasing companies are. But our leasing companies are all well-respected international leasing companies, and there's a table of these leasing companies publicly available. So this is not a secret at all.
Where is it available? Sorry?
I don't know, but in our document,
we were looking at in public documents, in public reports. Our team could not find this information.
I think we need to do much more of these interviews, because I see that there is a lot of misunderstanding of what we do when I hear the question. The leasing companies which we have, they announce even with press releases that they bought aircraft from us. So if you just Google Air Baltic leasing, you should even find them by looking at them. But we in the company, of course, keep a track of all the leasing companies which we have contracts with, because it's pretty significant.
All right. It is maybe something that you can improve, because in Air Baltic documents and announcements that doesn't exist. But you say that these are reputable big leasing companies. There is one specific one that I wanted to ask about, because we did look into some of the aircrafts, and we found that one of the planes that was purchased last year, and we can look maybe at this information. Basically, the ownership goes through a string of companies. One of those companies, the last one, is its capital is €1. This is what can be found in public records. It can be also found that the directors of these companies, between them, share hundreds of other companies. So, correct me if I'm wrong, this looks like a system to hide the true beneficiary.
We close a contract with a leasing company after, we normally do 4 aircraft. The leasing companies, once they have the aircraft, it's their asset. They can sell an aircraft to another leasing company, right? Because we are not the owner of an aircraft. When we do the leasing, we do normally 4 aircraft or 6 in an international tender with an international consultant trying to find the best offer. Then we are closing a contract with a leasing company, but that leasing company now owns the aircraft. And for example, if it's a bank, that bank can sell their asset to somebody else. We are still then leasing the aircraft from whoever was doing the contract.
Actually, no. In this case, you're leasing it from.
Actually, I have to say that I do not recognize the last names, but I'm very happy to even come back and document it all to you.
Do you know who? Okay, but in any case, at the moment,
I know all
Air Baltic is transferring money, payments for
to leasing companies.
Yes. Do you know who is the end beneficiary in this chain?
Again, I cannot recognize all these names, but I can definitely I can definitely get you within 1 hour every payment Air Baltic makes to every leasing company on an Excel table. But it's pretty significant,
Great.
correct?
You
can challenge me on this, and I'll be back in 1 hour with a table of all our leased aircraft and all the companies behind it, because I do not recognize these 4 companies and the stream, but I don't say that there's something wrong here, because give me 1 hour and you have that table, because we are definitely on this one as transparent as any other airline.
The question is, should you know who is in the end of this? Who ultimately Air Baltic is dealing with?
Because we do this, know your client. Of course we do this, because we have this obligation contractually when we close a contract with somebody to make sure that we know who are the beneficial owners. We do this because we are a Latvian state-owned company.
But you can't tell me now.
Out of my memory, not, but as I didn't bring all the leasing companies. We have 39 aircraft now, and I do not know by memory all of them. Sorry.
Okay, well, as you can guess, we looked up who is at the end of this last company in this chain, and this is a guy called Lars Windhorst. I'm sure that you've heard
name
about
I
him.
definitely know.
So
he is a German national.
Did you know that he owns basically one of the Air Baltic aircraft?
Today, I don't know that he owns one because I can't even confirm it yet because I do not have that information. But it could be. I don't exclude it. But cannot.
Shouldn't you know?
No, I cannot know I cannot know today if a leasing company sells an aircraft to another company. This is something outside of Air Baltic. If you sell your car and the car is sold to somebody else, you don't know that. So I cannot control a sale of an asset after we have sold it. But I can only control the one we are selling the asset to. Sorry.
But this is public money that goes to
first of
whoever
all, it's not public money. We are paying with the income we generate our bills. We are not paying our bills with the money the state has injected, because otherwise we would have just had 340 million in the last 3 years. And we could have not paid our bills.
Of course.
Yes, so we are not paying with public money our lease rates. We are generating income, and with the income, Air Baltic is paying the lease rates.
Yes, but since Air Baltic is the asset of the state of Latvia,
that's correct.
Basically,
and the private shareholder.
This is yes, and the 2% are of the private shareholder, but. Basically, this is the Latvian taxpayers who are taking this risk, and the question is, if you, as the appointed boss of the whole operation, shouldn't you know where this money is going to? This shouldn't be a surprise for you.
No, we do know where we transfer our money to. I'm very sure that we are not transferring money to Mr. Windhorst. That's for sure, because that I would know if we transfer it to the person.
Yes, because he's hiding behind.
But believe me, I have run companies even bigger than this one, and I do know how to run a company and how to control a company. It's not just me controlling it. We have in the company several systems. So believe me, our finance department is aware of what they do, and I'm very happy to answer concrete questions. But to just put a picture there and say, do you know you pay to this guy? I can just say that I'm sure we are not paying to that person money.
Of course, because a system is employed in order not to directly show who is the beneficiary.
But then you understand, I would not know then, or could I know any system in the world where there is somebody behind some payment? No. So I don't know whether that is true.
If I could find this out in a couple of working days, then I'm sure that.
Do we know that what you find out is correct? Well, we have many news at the moment around Air Baltic where we then find out it is not correct. So. But I'm on this one, as we are transparent in Air Baltic, and it's not that we are hiding anything. I'm very happy to come back, we cannot do it now in this interview, to give you all the explanation you need. I'm very happy to do that.
I understand what you're saying. I still want to ask what you think about this specific businessman, because
I cannot comment on him because I don't know him personally.
Well, I can tell you some facts that come up if you look into, let's say, Financial Times information about him. He just a string of facts, and then you can react or you can ignore this. Of course, that's your right. In 2009, the public prosecutor in Berlin pressed charges against him for fraud, breach of trust, embezzlement. There was a plea bargain. Currently, Berlin prosecutors are pursuing a criminal investigation into him. Financial Times investigation several years ago revealed that his companies have a circular flow of money between various offshore vehicles in the companies. He has gone through personal bankruptcy and also suspended jail sentence.
He was also, when he was 18 years old, traveling with Chancellor Kohl. That's why I know the name. No, that's why I know the name. He was a very public figure in Germany when he was 18, and he was seen as a wonder kid. I remember that because I was much younger then. That's why I know the name. He's known. The name is known in Germany. But whatever you just said, I don't know. But if you want, then I will read more about Mr. Windhorst, and then maybe many more billionaires in the world, which is for sure interesting stuff. But I'm supposed to run Air Baltic and make sure that the money of Air Baltic is not going into the wrong directions, that we know who is behind what we pay and so on. And that I do, believe me. Whether it's Mr. Windhorst or not Mr. Windhorst, I will find out after this meeting because I'm interested. But I cannot comment on all the accusations you got from newspapers about a person, because that's not something I do. I cannot, but I will definitely, because you'd mentioned it, go back and try to find out, because I have a big team in Air Baltic with more than 2,000 people, and I'm sure if they see this, they all want to know.
If this turns out, of course, this is something we found thanks to public resources and company registries, etc., like journalists do. There are bound to be mistakes sometimes, but I'm pretty sure about this one. If this turns out that this is the guy receiving money from Air Baltic that, as we discussed, is owned by the Latvian taxpayers, are you comfortable given this list of problems?
Even what you're constructing now is so complex that I can't even answer to this question, because I don't know what to answer. You've made such a big balloon now where I will, you know what I do? I go in now, I have a big organization with a lot of detailed information, and I will want to understand, because it takes a while to digest all of this, what is the fact? That's what I'm doing, because I carry more than 5 million passengers a year, and I need to know if somebody loses the suitcase in Dubai, what happened to the suitcase. I can find that out as well. So as I can find that suitcase, I will find the information you just required, because I'm interested, as you publicly asked it. I just don't think that will be making any difference to Air Baltic's success and business, whatever I find out. Unless we're doing something which is not legal, then of course there would be a serious breach, and I would follow that up as well. Because don't forget, I came to the company which was highly corrupt, and I had to clean it. And I got a lot of recognition for cleaning it under Prime Minister Dombrovskis and the last 4 governments. And each time the government trusted me to continue doing it, and I will also do it now, if needed.
Another question. When Air Baltic first got the first batch of the new airplanes, back then, I think publicly they were called Bombardier CS300, 3000, that was 2017.
2016.
2016, yes, but 2017, I guess you received them.
2016, on the 16th of December, we received the first CS300.
We also looked into public information, and what we found out is that for the first 7 Airbus planes, there is an offshore company in Cayman Islands called Lead Machines Leasing Ltd. that has registered a commercial pledge for this aircraft. Yeah. So we conclude that it owns those. Can you tell us who is behind this Lead Machines Leasing Ltd?
I can tell you that our first 7 aircraft are with a company which is called Axiom. And this company has not done a sale and leaseback. This company has done a financing with these 7 aircraft, which means after now in 5.5 years, the first of these aircraft is owned by Air Baltic. So that is a different one. As I said, the first 8 aircraft, and the 8th aircraft is with EDC, which is called Export Credit Canada. That's the state-owned Bank of Canada doing export credit financing. So these first 8 aircraft, we will be the owner after their finance term is over, and Axiom are the first 7 aircraft. What you again say, what is behind and deep down, we have a contract with Axiom, and we are paying to Axiom, which to my knowledge, but I checked that as well, is still in Ireland based.
It's also Cayman Islands.
Whatever we do, we do it according to the legislation and the law. The complexity of airline leasing in the world, the detail of the questions you ask now, it's very interesting, because this is a global system which works very well. What we do as Air Baltic, we follow all the rules and regulations by doing it. And as you said, we did it in 2016, correct?
Yes,
so if we did it in 2016, guess how often that was audited in all these years in between, whether this is correct or not. So it's just, if something is happening in Air Baltic for all these years and it hasn't changed, what's now wrong with it?
Sorry, this is a weak argument because it can't be that something has been going on
for so many years, you know. I
and
agree,
no one has noticed.
And today you find out that there's something wrong, and then we should. But the problem is that I'm not aware that something has changed with the Axiom aircraft, because they were the first ones. But if you have a concrete question to me, which I can answer, I will. But yes, nobody has brought to my attention that there's something wrong with the Axiom aircraft.
So you said it's in Ireland. Actually, this is not quite the case. Axiom Baltic Services, which is leasing then those aircrafts from the company that I have mentioned. So there's two-layer lease system. Both of those companies...
I hope people watching this still follow us, but let's go on.
Yes, I agree. This is complicated, yes. But in any case...
You have the expert here, because I do this for 30 years, so I should understand, right?
Yes, so tell us why, first of all, you haven't answered the question, who's behind it, but I will press you on that later. But why do you need a deal to finance the purchase of this aircraft with two Cayman Island companies? It's an offshore. People use this to hide money and hide owners. Why does Air Baltic deal with this kind of companies?
No, again, when we close contracts, then we do it in competition with what is done internationally. We are not doing anything different than any other airline based on the same legal terms, because it's an international competition. Go into Smartlinks, go into Lufthansa, go into Finnair, and analyze each of their sale and lease specs. This is a global business, well beyond what is done here, because we do not have another airline which is doing it to this extent. We do not have another airline in Latvia which buys new aircraft. But on a purchase of 2016, no, the purchase of the aircraft was in 2012. On the financing or the finance transactions of 2016, that has been audited and shown to so many instances. For example, we issued a bond since that time. We had investigations from different governments into our financing.
Yes, this is,
and all of this has happened already. So now you say something wrong now.
Our time is running out. So but you still haven't answered my question.
Yeah.
First of all, question.
I try to, but it's difficult.
No, it's quite easy. First question number: why do you need to deal with Cayman Islands?
I'm not dealing with Cayman Islands. We are dealing with a company called Axiom.
They are registered in Cayman Islands.
And what we do is checked not only by our legal firm, we have external law firms confirming that these contracts are in order. Because we are an airline which has a turnover of $500 million a year. We are internationally stock listed in Ireland with a bond. We have a different obligation than a local blackmailing campaign, which we have a lot because the company is so big. It's going to be the 6th largest company in Latvia. The transparency, because there's always this suspicion, the transparency I try to bring, I just do not understand what to do more to show you that it is. I cannot tell you.
Tell us who is behind this Cayman Island companies.
I can today not tell you again.
Why?
Because I do not know if somebody who owns an asset and is transferring his titles, it's not possible for me here and now to do it. But as I said, we can sit down, we go through the lease to each of the companies, and then we would need to ourselves do what you do, to do some research to find that out.
Let's say you don't know now. At the moment where in 2016, that is not possible, but we need time to translate the interview for Friday. But you say you don't know now. When you were closing those deals in 2017, who was the beneficiary of these companies?
We will have to look in who signed at that time the documents.
You were negotiating with someone. There were people.
You know that when you discuss this with large companies, like for example KKR, I do not know today, but it's the largest fund in the world. I do not know today who is the CEO of, because at the end of the day, the CEO...
Do you remember with whom you were negotiating back then?
The negotiations with the different leasing companies, no. But there's so many lawyers involved and so many people when you do aircraft leasing. We're talking about an asset for $90 million list price. Do you think I'm just doing this with somebody on a table? This is properly done with several law firms behind it. This is not just done like you buy a car with a car dealer. You have a proper process This is not just me signing a deal somewhere. And this is, I think, what is wrong. You are thinking that we are doing it like buying a car. That's a complex process.
Of course. And
what I know is Axiom, because that was the first one, therefore the name I know. I do not know who signed at that time the contract on the other side. I do not know, but I will find out, because that is definitely something we know.
But this is the whole deal. If you will look at the number that is publicly, is more than €1 billion.
Yes.
So you might say
that's a very good one.
Excuse me, I'll finish. Let me finish my sentence.
1 billion is a big number, yeah?
Let me finish my sentence. You might say that I just don't understand the business. But what I understand is that I'm talking to the main responsible person in the company about the probably biggest deal of 1 billion. And I'm asking you, who is on the other side? And you can't tell me. And what I see is that these are Cayman...
It's not correct. I with all respect, not all of the people I met in the last 11 years in Air Baltic, not all of them I do. I met a lot of people and I'm dealing with a lot of people. But you cannot accuse me of not knowing now something. It's definitely not an individual person and might not even be the beneficial owner present, because large leasing companies are owned by funds.
Have said this, but
and
this
you
is
said
not
it's Cayman Islands. I can't remember sitting with somebody from Cayman Islands. I cannot remember that I was sitting with somebody from Cayman Islands. That I know.
But we can't sit
and
here.
I wasn't on the Cayman Islands. So
but we cannot sit here and pretend that we don't know why Cayman Islands is used.
No,
it is used
I cannot tell
because
you.
we as journalists and the public cannot see who is behind these companies.
But
it is non-transparent flow of money.
But is this a fault of Air Baltic? Is this an Air Baltic problem?
Well, yes, because you closed the deal with Cayman Islands.
No, we didn't. We didn't close it. So is it Air Baltic's fault that there is something in the world existing? Why do you try to put this to Air Baltic? Why?
Because you're using the system.
No, you say we're using it, but why you're just doing it? Your people now seeing this think, okay, these people are guilty, and this is what is happening all the time. The question is, why are you doing it? Ask yourself why, because I definitely have a very good name in the world and a good track record, and I'm 30 years in this business, and I will fight. And I'm live, or not live, but you will do something out of it. It sounds like live.
This will go on air as it is.
Yeah, please don't cut it, because I want people to see that we are transparent. But when you go to details which are difficult, to the very detailed, how can somebody who runs a company now, which makes $500 million revenue, no, I know we are not. I know I haven't dealt with a person from Cayman Islands, that I know. I haven't been in the Cayman Islands, so. But there will be many, many constructs where it could well be that this is legal. I don't know today, but what we don't do in Air Baltic, we don't do things which are not legal. And if something would happen which is not legal, we make sure that we correct it. But that's it. I run this company with a corporate governance, which several levels, trying to make sure. I, for example, cannot sign something alone and will not, because we have a system in place which is a control system. And I just hope that one day these things turn into that people say, wow, that's a good company. I wish, I'm waiting for that first interview. I'm having one tomorrow with NRA or on Friday. That might be then the one. Still waiting for it. Where somebody says, guys, you convinced us. Air Baltic is important for the country. You're doing a good job. We are proud of being the largest exporter. I'm waiting for that interview. Hasn't happened yet, but might come.
I wish you that as well, and I hope to maybe publish these words at some point. Thank you very much for the interview. Thank you for the time and the answers, and I hope that we speak again.
I hope so too. Yeah. Thank you.